As Paul Blanco closes in on nearly 100 episodes, we see time and time again that some of the top performing advisors on Paul's team at Barnum, and elsewhere, didn't just come into success out of the blue. All of them were inspired by someone or something that pushed them to go that extra mile and strive to be the best versions of themselves. Barnum Financial Advisors Ben Howarth, Bryan Rosen, Jason Bayek, and Norman Leslie are just a few of the guests who have shared their inspirations on Paul Blanco's Small Steps, Big Wins. Financial advisor and financial service executive Ben Howarth.
Ben, you've had an amazing career so far. And, I know you're really just beginning, but I'd like to go backwards a little bit and try to let the audience understand how you got really started in the career and what attracted you to financial services.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I've, kind of thought a lot about that throughout my career. And when I was younger, I always wanted to do something with stocks. And there was actually a movie called Secret to My Success with Michael J. Fox. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
yes,
I could always see myself. He was in the mailroom and kind of worked himself up into the CEO position. And I always really liked helping people, wanted to do something with stocks. And that's kind of how I got into it, looking in different career paths in college and decided, hey, I can help people, I can manage stocks, I can do insurance, and thought it was going to be a good avenue for me to do the things that I liked.
So it's interesting. So you come in right out of college and, you have this vision for yourself. And did you hit challenges early? And then were those different, like when you were 5, 8 years in than they were in the beginning?
100%. When I first started, one of the reasons why I chose this company was I had two different options. I could have gone to UBS and been somebody's, errand guy for a couple of years, or I could have started and really been entrepreneurial and be on my own. And I said, listen, I've got the makeup to do this. I can do this. I want to make a bunch of money. But challenges when I first started, I remember sitting at my desk. We had the one cards that we had to draw out, your market match. Sure. And I had my computer, I had my market match, and I had a phone. I said, all right, I'm here. Now what the heck do I do? I lived 45, 50 minutes from the office. My mom's a teacher. My father was in the lumber industry. And I'm like, all right, it's not like I've got all these people to call. And even if I did, who am I? What do I do? So when I very, very first started, it was challenging. And 21-year-old kid, I looked like I was 12 without the goatee. I probably still would look like I'm 12. But
I don't know about 12.
Maybe not now.
Maybe 25. Maybe 25.
Maybe 25. My hair's getting thin. So right. But it's tough when you first start because you don't know what to do. So what I did was I really tried to lean on experienced advisors. There was 2 advisors in the office that I would go out with and my manager at the time. And what I tried to do was take a little bit from everything that they did and mold it to my own personality. And I think one of the areas I got myself into trouble is I thought I could do it on my own. And the problem is that when you first start, you don't know what you don't know. And that silent objection from the client may be that they know you don't know what you don't know because you look like, you're a young kid and you don't have the experience. So I think as I moved throughout my career and that changed and said, listen, I got to lean on these people more. I got to bring more people. I got to utilize the resources that I have available to me to help me close more cases. And yes, I had to split some of the business, but that was my cost of education. And the next case I was able to do better on my own and the next one better on my own. So those were some of the really, really early challenges that I had in my career when I first started.
It's interesting and I appreciate you sharing that. And, a lot of advisors, obviously you're in sales, even though you're getting, I always try to think about, we're not selling widgets here. You're helping clients make financial decisions. And I think that once you get the facts and their goals, really the only thing you're trying to do is help them through procrastination. And it's not really sales. It's just getting them to make a decision on the things they already agreed to. But advisors have egos, and sometimes that gets in the way of doing the joint work or learning like that. And I think what you said was really important, that, and make sure you guys realize this, he paid for that, but it's like college. You want to pay for it, but you don't want to pay for it twice. So you better learn along the way and take all the stuff out of you so you can use it in your business. But why don't you talk about your mindset of giving back to your community and paying it forward?
With my family, we've always been fortunate to be in a good spot and always learned to give back. But I think with Barnum, with the Foundation for Life, one of the first events that I went to was one of the Bikes for Kids events. And we give out, for those of you that don't know, about 500 bikes a year to underprivileged children. We did prior to the COVID and not being able to get the bikes. But the impact that you have on the children, there was a child at one of these events, and it was at a home for children that had been taken out of their house and because they were in a bad living situation. And one of the little kids, as we brought like 20 bikes to these children, they were like, "You mean we don't all have to share the good bike?" Giving back, I've been fortunate in my life. It feels great to be able to give back and make an impact on other people because we are fortunate, right? We work hard, but we make a good living. And if we can help somebody else, put them in a better financial position, put a smile on their face with a bike, or we just did an event with a Make-A-Wish child and made their wish come true. It just makes you feel good at the end of the day. And it's a hard business, right? You're working your tail off every single day. You got a lot of things. You got a lot of stress. The stock market being down last year or during COVID, right? It's a stressful job. But at the end of the day, if you can make an impact on people's lives and what you do, and then make an impact in the community, you feel good about yourself at the end of the day. And that's part of why I do it selfishly, is because I feel good being able to do that and make that impact.
Financial planner and financial executive, Bryan Rosen.
Many of our listeners are at all different stages of their career, but I always like to start with the journey, where the journey began. And why don't you tell me how you came about the career and why, and, what you were thinking when you were a 22-year-old kid coming into the financial service industry?
Sure. That's a great place to start. And I think some of the values that I've had and were instilled in me growing up, as far as work ethic and so on and so forth, really parlayed me into a great career here. So, we grew up as a working family, whether it was working open houses at my grandfather's ice cream store or working as a landscaper in a garden center environment. Everything that we did was hard work and give it 110% all the way through. So working at the family garden center, my grandfather at the time, anytime we had some downtime together, would kind of educate me on what a stock was and how to research a stock and so on and so forth. So he goes, the store's not going to be here forever. You have to think about a career that you might want to go into long term. So I was like, okay, Pop, we'll see if that actually happens. And they actually sold the store the day I went to college. So I had to think about a major and a career path. So I chose finance. Very intrigued in finances. A lot of family members, friends were in the financial industry around my home and in our social circle. So I loved learning about finances in college, and then had the opportunity to be introduced to Barnum right when I was graduating. And that's when I met Joe Lopresti, had an incredible meeting with him, met you and Mindy, and the rest was kind of history.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And, I could think back to when you first started, but, one thing that's really interesting is you really, truly did hit the ground running, and you broke a lot of records in the industry as a young professional in the financial service industry in terms of, and when I think of breaking records, I think of the impact you've had on clients' lives. But was there any challenges early on or obstacles that you faced, especially being new to the industry? And, tell us where your mind was at that time.
Sure. So I came into the business from literally going to school and working full time. So I had a paycheck every single day. So starting out in the business, I was concerned about, hey, where would my next dollar come from? So my meeting with Joe was, hey, listen, as long as you see 15 people a week, you're going to be successful and you'll be able to cover your expenses. I said, okay, 15 people a week, I'll make X. Well, what happens if I want to make Y? He goes, see more people. I said, what happens if I see more people? He goes, you're going to do better. So I said, okay, so I'm going to go see more people. The challenge that I had personally as a young advisor is I was, again, fortunate enough to have such a great natural market, but my natural market was in Long Island. Our firm at the time was still is in Shelton, Connecticut. That's where my office was. And I was driving back and forth every day, trying to map out the appointments along my route of 95 to 495 and back. So I think I spent more time on MapQuest than I did eMoney in the earlier part of my career.
And did you struggle with clients when they first met you, or people you knew that you were younger in the business, or did you think that did that not affect you, when you first started?
Being brand new in the business and making phone calls at 22, 23 years old, obviously people that you meet are a little concerned that you just came into the business, so on and so forth. So one of the advantages that we had early on is I partnered with a senior advisor who I brought out to some of the more challenging appointments that I had. I brought Joe Lopresti to my natural marketing family, so they knew that we had a larger firm behind them than just me that cared in planning. Being a student in the business really, really young, in between my appointments and late at night, I would study on strategy, on product, and educate myself. So if somebody did ask me a question earlier on in one of those meetings, I was still able to provide value. And in a way, surprise them. Hey, this kid came right out of college, but he knows what he's talking about.
Great. And what I was going to make a comment was, for the listeners out there, Joe Lopresti, who Bryan keeps referring to, is the manager that he started under. And he's the one that helped develop Bryan and coach Bryan still to this day. So I think that's really important that it's great that he had such a major impact on you early and through the whole career. I wanted to talk about your mindset. When you think of, as a newer advisor to today, what has shifted in your mindset that helps you to continue to bring it each day, but also how you go about your business? And is there a difference in your mindset, or is it the same mindset it was when you first started?
So being close to almost 20 years in the business, and it's crazy. I think I'm approaching 18 or 19 years right now. In the beginning, we were helping clients solve a future need, whether that was put money into a 529 and eventually your kids can go to school, buy this life insurance policy because it's going to protect your future family if something happens to you. Add money to your 401k and Roth IRA because at some point you're going to want to retire. Fast forward now 18 years, and we have successfully seen our clients' kids go to college that we help them fund. We have seen people not run out of money in retirement because of some of the planning that we put in place. And unfortunately, we have seen clients get disabled, pass away, and need some type of long-term care service. So some of the promises that we put in place years ago are helping spouses and themselves continue their life financially if the major breadwinner passed away, got hurt, or is going through a long-term care position. So a lot of what I do now when I meet somebody brand new is really educate them on some of the success stories that I've had in the past. This is some of the reasons why we do X, Y, and Z. Let me explain this to you. It has changed, I would say, my why, right? The why in the past was get as many people as you can, go see as many people as you can, you can help them, so on and so forth. But now the why is, wow, I really helped all of these people along the way. I want to continue to see these things into fruition.
Yeah. And it's, I think that's amazing. And thank you for sharing that, because I think one of the things that the industry needs to really continue to hammer home is the emotional side of having those connections. And when you think of a career, there's not many careers like this that you get to impact as many lives. Our mission is impact as many lives as possible. And it's great that you're getting great strength today in your career to continue to see what you did in the past come to fruition on both sides, right? Like, I'm retiring in style, or something happened that I needed to use some of the risk management tools that you put in place. It's really awesome. And for the people that are younger out there listening, once that clicks in your head, it's over for you. And for me, that was very early in my career, especially just selling one silo of the business. It clicked pretty quickly. And, that really gave me strength every day to follow through.
Certified financial planner, Jason Bayek.
You went to college and, you went to NYU and you played basketball there. You were an avid athlete your whole life, and you get out of school. What made you go into the financial service industry?
So my very first job out of school was actually working in reinsurance. So I wanted to work in finance. I was an econ major at NYU. A lot of my buddies went on to work in finance. A lot of the older guys on my basketball team eventually ended up working in finance. And so I started working in reinsurance. And at the time, I loved it. I was working with numbers. I was always been a math guy. I was working in teams. And eventually just kind of got to the point where I wasn't really feeling fulfilled. Our company was doing great. Revenue was great. I had a lot of visibility and upward mobility in reinsurance, but it got to the point where I wasn't really fulfilled with the end product or the end service that I was providing. I grew up in a household where everyone in my family were civil servants, whether they were teachers, doctors, nurses. Everybody worked with people, and that's what I always wanted to do. In reinsurance, your client is an enormous insurance company, or a few enormous insurance companies. And I met somebody who worked in financial services at a wirehouse at the time. And I met him at a pool party. And he said,
not surprised.
Why don't you take all of your financial skills, your math skills, your analytical skills, and your people skills and work with people? Maybe not work with large companies as the end user of your services, but work with people so you can impact their lives. And ultimately, that's how I got started in financial services.
Well, good for that person to see that. And, it's interesting because when you think of your profile and then what you said earlier about your family and how they did it, and when you get to work with people and then you really get to impact the end user very differently than what you did in reinsurance, I think it was a perfect fit for you to get into the career. Did you have a role model that you looked at? I know you talked earlier about your family being in the service and always working with people, but did you have some people that you looked at and you said, I want to take a little bit from this or a little bit from that? Can you give me a little color on that?
Ooh, I got a long list of role models, and I can break them down into groups. So my first group is my family. So, my parents, my siblings, my wife, Steph, all internal role models to the household, people that have wildly different personalities, but always inspire me in different ways and things that I could take on just how they live to try to make myself a better human, to be a better planner, and to be a better professional. And then I have my work mentors and the people that I look up to. Brian Rosen, a longtime advisor here at Barnum, started as my mentor here at Barnum, now is my partner here at Barnum Premier Client Group. From day one, has always been an incredible mentor to me. Still continues to be a great mentor to me, even though we're partners to this day. There's always something to learn from him. I was a host of other people here at Barnum. You, Mindy Blanco, Joe Presti, who is my sales manager, Ben Sacadato, Chris Campitsis, another Barnum, an incredible Barnum team here, all great internal mentors. And then what I think is really important is I have my personal board of directors. So these are people completely outside the industry who I can rely on to give me candid advice. And purposely, they aren't in my industry. So there's one that works for a private bank. There's another that works for a big media company. There's another that works for an enormous technology company. These are people that, I can have a 2-hour car ride with, and we could talk about our career. We could talk about personal challenges. We could talk about how those things intersect. We could talk about work-life balance. But it's really, really important that I hope that everybody after this podcast takes this forward is create your own personal board of directors, people that you can rely on, people that you can ask candid and straightforward advice to, and people that you respect.
Financial advisor, Norman Leslie.
You got here and you truly hit the ground running. And, the one thing that I noticed very, very quickly is you had this discipline to make the calls, to go after people in the market that you chose, but also to get referrals, which was very different. A lot of advisors didn't do that. So tell me what you were thinking when you got here. And now you not only had the investment side of the business, but then you started to focus on the insurance business. And tell me how you made that transition.
The gentleman who told me about Barnum, he had already sold financial products to the 8 or 10 people that I knew. So there was absolutely no way to be successful in this business except the way of referral. So I had to do that. That was no choice. But it was an older gentleman, Frank Giannini. Earlier in the career, there are some guys who took me under their wings. And Frank said to me, Norm, the only place you'll find success before work is in the dictionary. And
I heard that one before.
Yes. And then I read something else that said, success is the natural consequence of consistently applying basic fundamentals. So I decided that, hey, if you want to be successful, which is appropriately titled Small Steps, Big Win, that's exactly what I had to do. I had to put in the effort every day without failure. And 30 years after, I am here.
It's amazing. So let's talk about that, though. Think back for a minute, and we'll get into present day later on. But if you think back, were there some challenges and obstacles you hit early career that you had to fight through to make, mentally to continue on the journey?
There were many challenges. To begin with, we had to call from the phone book. And we had what we called the 1-card system back in the days.
Yes.
And you'd have to make like 10 calls to connect with one person or two. It was a real challenge. And oftentimes you book the appointment. That was before cell phone as you know it now. You'd book the appointment. Either they would call to cancel or they would not cancel. You show up after driving 30 minutes, 40 minutes to the house and they were not there. So, you just had to be disciplined. And as you always say, Paul, as my boss at the time and now, you always say, Norman, it's a numbers game. Yep. Every time you get a no, you're one step closer to the next yes. So you just kept on going, kept on grinding.
But talk about the mental part of that. So you show up at someone's home. Let's say it was 30 minutes away. Mm-hmm. They're not there. You're maybe not having a great week. Maybe questioning your journey. How did you get past that?
As I said again, by having conversation with other representatives that were in the business 10, 15, 20 years ahead of me. If others have done it, you can do it as well. Yeah. And they've shared with me that they've had similar stories. And they were using the rate card book many years. And to me, that was just unfathomable. So I'm saying if they did it, having to work with that system, my system is no more advanced. Yes, there are going to be challenges, but you have to stay the course.
Well, it's interesting you said that. I'm laughing to myself because I only came in the business 3 years before you.
Yes.
But my first month, I learned how to use a rate book. And then literally we got computerized illustrations like a month after I started. So you almost were on the rate card stuff then. Well, I love that. And I think that too many advisors come in the industry and you want to emulate people that are successful. You want to understand how they got there. And I always teach that one of the things that you need to learn in this industry or in life as an entrepreneur is to be super curious. So you didn't even realize how curious you were because you were asking all these questions of the veterans. So many of the people that are listening in today that are advisors that are at different points of their career, go to people that have ahead of you in the journey, like Norman did. And that's very helpful because they could help you understand, especially if it's in the same industry, what it took to get there. Another thing is I use, as you know, Norman, a lot of dadisms. And my dad, to sum up what you said, he always told me, he said, listen, everyone puts their pants on the same way you do, one leg at a time. So if they can do it, why not you? So I appreciate that, what you just said. So I think that there's a point in everyone's career. I call it where it clicks. Some people say it's a turning point, but was there a point where you woke up one day and you were like, this is it. I'll do this for the rest of my life. Was there something that happened that it clicked and you just said, I'm off to the races?
I would say there was a point, and you'll be pleased to know that you played a part in that.
Oh, wow.
If you recall, some many years ago, as a result of Barnum being the number one firm for MetLife for many years consecutively, they wanted to have an African-American advisor council. By virtue of the firm, they asked you for a representative, and you sponsored me. I would say sponsored. And it was about 15 of us. When I got to these meetings, whether it's Chicago, California, wherever, Dallas, and I surveyed the room, I realized that, one, I was the youngest of all the members on that board. And two, I was the least qualified for being on that board. And I decided then that I need to go back to get some designations. And that is when I went back to the American College, when partnered with them, and I pursued the CASL and the Chartered Advisor for CHFC designations. And it's amazing that some of those individuals that were in the room that were senior to me and more experienced, today I am their resource. So it was after getting my designation, there was a transition from transactional business to a more consultative type approach to the business. And I realized the need that exists in this industry.
30 years later, other than you talked about the legacy, so you got that, you've arrived, because now you never ever want to peak, but you arrive mentally to know that this is your calling. And it's not just about being successful for you. It's about being successful for clients. But how has your mindset shifted?
My mindset shifted. There are a number of things. One particular thing, if I may even say this to you right now, being a part of the Plan Smart program that we have here, there is a tremendous gap between different ethnic group and what they have accomplished financially. And if you were to look at this industry, there are not many African Americans in this industry. And right now, like for the month of February, Black History Month, I may have taught this particular workshop maybe 20 times. The workshop is called Closing the Gap, Building Wealth in the Black Community. And just when we do offer these workshops, there's a complimentary consultation to individuals who attend. And oftentimes when I meet with some of the individuals in that constituents, some are doing well, but you have others who have been employed for 20, 30 years, and they're leaving employers money on the table by not participating in the 401k. So now, as I said earlier, I do have a responsibility, and I'm trying. My next step is to maybe help to grow Barnum by employing more African Americans so that they can reach that constituency and really do make a difference.
And I think that's the next legacy for you, is to impact and build a team around you that can help those communities to grow. Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.